Hello, I'm John Ratio, and welcome to Long-Term Planning Demystified. Now, recently, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about different long-term planning methods, and I wanted to give my own take on it, because that's the point of this channel. So, I want to start with why we plan. Everything we do, we should have a purpose for doing it, so I think it's important to consider why we plan, and then we can evaluate the different planning methods that are out there based on these criteria. The first reason is for intentionality and purpose. This is to make sure that we don't get off track of what we want to accomplish. The second thing is to simplify decision making. Taking a little bit of load off of our brains is always welcome. And the last thing is a motivational tool. I have a love-hate relationship with the current systems people use because I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on it being a motivational tool or even a way to maintain intentionality without actually focusing on simplifying decisions. And there is a common planning tool that does simplify decisions somewhat, but it's a bit limited, okay? So we're going to go over some common methods, and then I'll give you the optimal way to go about long-term planning. So from what I've researched, there are 3 common planning methods. First one is goals. And this is like the obvious one. This comes to anyone naturally. But what I'm talking about is not just writing down goals, but also keeping track of specific goals. Because if you're smart, you'll use the SMART method. The SMART method is an acronym that means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. These are the 5 criteria you should use to set goals. These are 5 criteria that they're not the only criteria you should use. I think there's a value in finding goals with a good match quality with you. Something that you can do that doesn't stress you out, that you can enjoy, would be ideal, right? So the issue with this is that just writing down goals, while it does preserve intentionality, it is not a substitute for long-term planning. It does not simplify any decisions that you have to make in the future. And you can ask yourself when you are deciding whether or not to do something, does this help me achieve my goal or not? But sometimes the answer is going to be no, but you still need to do that thing. For example, taking care of your hygiene or, going to sleep on time. Those things are important, but they not always will they be the obvious choice for you to make when you want to achieve your goal. The second common planning method I've seen is vision boards. And these are kind of a more fancy version of just writing down goals, but the extra step here is that people will select images that resonate with them emotionally and put them in a place where they can see them so that they can be reminded of their goal and, become much more likely to stick to the goal because of, they have these pictures that really resonate with them. And once again, absolutely, this is more motivational than having goals. It still maintains intentionality. It's good stuff, but we're still lacking the critical simplifying decisions. And that's why my favorite of the common planning methods is bullet journals. But I'm still not all on board with them. A bullet journal is just a journal that has a habit tracker in it, right? So you will have boxes. And this is super popular for a good reason. It makes goals really rewarding to pursue, right? It simplifies decisions by saying, this is the habit that I need to pursue. And it will allow you to track your success over time, which is really powerful. And it also commits you to your goals, which is great because you build habits. And habits are really powerful because it's basically automatic productivity. But flexibility is also pretty important. And also, not everything needs to be tracked. So I feel like bullet journaling is a bit vague, but it's my favorite method, right? So for example, I've seen some people track the weather. So let's talk about chess. So in chess, the goal is to capture the king. And yes, I know that's not actually how people play, but bear with me. So in order to capture the king, we need to get into a position called checkmate. And checkmate is a position where no matter where the king moves, right, that's why the rules are, if you get a checkmate, you win, because No one cares after that. It's automatic king capture, right? But you might be able to see how this relates to setting goals already, right? If the checkmate is the goal, we can translate this metaphor, right? So yeah, that's probably helpful. It helped you recognize positions that you might want to be in and positions that you might want to have. But if we translate bullet journals into this metaphor, that'd be like having a counter, and that would get you in the habit of seeking out captures. But seeking out captures is not the same as achieving a goal, right? It's not the same as if your only thing you're doing is focusing on capturing pawns, you're not going to be capturing the king, right? So even though these are both useful things to get better at capturing enemy pieces, to get better at recognizing favorable positions, they don't do the whole thing. Because what people actually do in chess is oftentimes they'll play from the book. So this refers to an opening that gives you a greater chance of winning. It gives you a game plan, how to position your pieces, what your pieces' jobs are, what their roles are, and what you look for in order to create openings so that you can get a checkmate, right? And depending on how studied the player is, they can even recognize these scenarios that their opening gives them and the opening that the enemy player is using and play appropriately around that. And the best players will see checkmates dozens of moves in advance. So it's widely recognized that the best way to increase your chance of winning, or to better yet, not leave it to chance at all, is to have a game plan. So here I've used the King's Indian defense. It's a pretty infamous defense in terms of it concentrates your pieces on this side, so that you'd be wrong. All the common methods, I see them as tools that can make a plan better, but none of these things on their own are a plan. And that's not saying my issue with it is that it ignores the biggest roadblock. Everybody ignores this, and I have no idea why. And that issue is we need to protect the king. You are the king, and you are your brain. So in theory, in my theory, right, my subjective anecdotal theory, if we prioritize mental health, we will protect ourselves from burnout. An ideal opening protects us from enemy checks and does not leave winning to chance. Now, I'm not a medical professional. This is not a substitute for medical care if you have a psychological condition, but I do have my own experiences that I can talk about. And so what we're going to try to avoid is burnout, anxiety, and what's it called? Accumulate stress slower than we recover. And this sounds obvious, but these are really two different things. And I've separated it into two different categories here. So recovery and stress. And before we say, well, I don't want to be stressed, no, you can't avoid stress. You will undergo stress, a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that stop us from working or cause us to, become disillusioned or unmotivated. So let's talk about recovery first, because this is a lot easier. We're basically just physically taking... So first, the brain. It's a jiggly soup of chemicals and fat-covered nerves with the consistency of butter. To take care of our brain, we just need to basically maintain the chemical. Basically, what we want to do is we want to make sure that these rhythms, they're standardized. It's really easy for... So I have 4 steps to do this. And the first is sleep. Everybody always talks about, get 8 hours. That's a minimum, 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But you may be different. So maybe you need 7. You need to get a good amount of sleep, but more importantly, for the sake of what I'm talking about here, it's not that it's not important to get enough sleep. It's obviously important to get enough sleep, but what I want to talk about is we're standardizing our circadian rhythm. We're protecting our brain. We're giving it time to recover after a long day of working. So, for the second thing, did you know that the brain is 75% water? So when you don't drink enough water, what do you think happens? Dry brains literally, right? And so people usually leave it at that, but I know there's a lot of people out there, a surprising amount of people, this shocked me, that don't like drinking water. So I was lucky enough to be born in a place where water tastes pretty. You can try adding lemon juice. If that's not working, you can try sparkling water. Sometimes if your stomach is rumbling, and it's not a mealtime, so if it's not a mealtime and you feel a hunger pang, just try drinking some water and see if your hunger subsides. If it doesn't, go have a snack, right? You don't want to be distracted by hunger while you're trying to get stuff done. But do not, if you're going to drink some kind of, liquid that is not water, try and save it for mealtime, because if you're drinking something with calories, you're going to be, we should try to put some caloric drinks, if we drink any, during a mealtime. So number 3 is regular exercise. This is also kind of a freebie. Staying active, put it in your day, make it a habit, do whatever it takes. But also, you can use exercise as a way to deal with when you get stuck on things, right? Because when you're taking a walk, your brain will calm down, it will begin to recover a little bit, and it will let your subconscious handle a lot of the harder, heart health, bone health, mood, etc., etc. You're going to feel better and think faster, right? Just whenever you can, get some steps in. Now, this is going to sound crazy, but this is just my personal experience. But I've noticed that when I've been really fit and when I'm more well exercised, but you're just going to have to take my word for this. I don't know if this is true at all. I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I just feel like that's a thing that happens. Okay, last is nutrition. I already talked a bit about it. It is pretty important. A lot of people already know that you want to be eating a balanced diet to avoid processed foods, to avoid sugars. But the thing about people is that they don't often do what's best for them because they don't feel like there's a hard bring awareness, right? We want to be aware of consequences. That way we don't pick a bad action. If we aren't aware of the consequences, then there's nothing stopping us from doing something that's not good for us. So let's optimize food crashes, right? Let's optimize sugar crashes. Let's just eat with the rhythm of our body. So let's set meal times. Let's eat at schedule, and so on and so forth, right? So, and lastly, it's okay to have snacks, but try to limit your snacks or replace your snacks with something else, like exercise and drinking water. Your stomach will feel full. You'll be doing something, so that's a principle I'm going to talk about later on. Replace bad habits or get. So I'll cover that. For now, I'm going to move on to decrease. So when we decrease stress, we need to analyze the things that stress us out. So let's categorize our activities and then formulate a game plan on what we're going to do about it once we have identified it. So we can categorize stress and we can figure out like where along the spectrum it lands, but that's not really as important as figuring out something that's good for us and we like it. So number 1 in this scenario is the ideal situation. Next, if it's good for us but we don't enjoy, this is not ideal, obviously. If it's in here, we should look for alternative ways to complete the task or to have the same effect get done, right? This especially includes asking for help or replacing it with something with similar benefits. Now, if it's not good for us and we like it, this is a very common scenario. If it's self-destructive, if it's really self-destructive and the reason why we do it is because we often feel, and so what you're going to have to do is, and instead of doing things, the common methods that people do is, they'll put a time limit on it or they'll limit this is obviously really hard. If it's really hard, why would we pick the hard route? Because I believe there's an easy, if we identify what is unfulfilled in our life, what is making us unhappy enough to seek out an activity, then we can fulfill that need. For example, if you find often browsing something like YouTube Shorts or TikTok, what you're doing is you're kind of just getting a low effort stimulus and something you can replace that with pretty easily, and you'll find that you'll have much more energy for other things because you're no longer using the limited amount of focus your brain can produce from its chemicals. Finally, we have number 4, the tasks we don't like and tasks that don't help us. And in the ideal, we can abandon this and they're not good enough, but like it is pretty great if you can. It's a pretty great first step if you can just identify what these tasks are. Sometimes, taking a look at anti-procrastination tips should help a lot with the ones I've listed in my previous video is gamifying the task, doing it in silly mode, talking to friends while doing it, listening to music. They're all, but eventually you do want to work your way to getting rid of this task forever. Absolutely, still make goals for yourself. Remember, SMART. It's so specific. If you're going to do a vision board, it's nice. It's not necessary, but it's nice. All you really need is to just keep track of your purpose, tasks, and to track specific habits. If you want to, you can track anxiety or stress from tasks, but it's not necessary. But it is good to get a bigger. So then we got the 4 rhythms. Sleep, really take care of these. This is one of the first places you can start bullet journaling if you want to start bullet journaling right away. And then remember to analyze your daily stress load. Think of all the tasks you do in the day. And really, realistically, we want everything to be a 1. If we can't get everything to be a 1, that's still okay. We can plan on getting there one day, or we can even just manage things. Is up to you. What you need for your specific goal, what skills you need to cultivate, what habits you need to get. That's all up in opening position so that you not leave it up to chance whether you succeed or not. So from here, go after whatever you're chasing. Speaking of things that I'm not leaving to chance, this YouTube channel. Last video was literally a raw recording for me to organize my own thoughts on productivity. It was literally just a video for myself I don't think I've seen anyone have the same takes on productivity that I did. And I'm glad. Thank you guys for all the encouragement on that video. You guys are the reason why this video exists. So if you like this stuff, keep letting me share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.